Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Azul is an ever popular game that came out, I believe, in like 2017-ish. It has taken the world by storm. It has won Spiel des Jahres Game of the Year. There's now been a ton of different Azuls coming out, and I like pretty much all of them. Now there is an Azul Duel, which is only for 2 players, and I know you're saying, wait a minute, I thought Azul's always great with 2 players. It is actually, it's fantastic. But this version is specific for 2 players because it is so crunchy and thinky you wouldn't want to play with more than 2 players. So let me show you how this game works and I'll see you on the other side. In Azul Duel, not only are you drafting tiles like you used to, there's now a special tile, you're also going to be drafting dome tiles, giving you flexibility of where to put those tiles. You're going to be getting bonus chips, acting as some of these if you get enough of them, and you're going to be going for endgame bonuses, which are double-sided tiles. The game's played over 5 rounds. Here's about 3rd round in. What you're trying to do is score points by placing tiles on your board. As you can see here, over the course of the game, you're going to be drafting these dome tiles. This tells you which colors you can put where, like blues on blues. Sometimes there's wilds. You're able to, when you draft these, place these anywhere you want and in any orientation that you want, but once they're placed, you don't move them. Now, as you're drafting tiles, which I'll show you later, at the end of the round, if you have one completely filled up, like let's say we had these filled, if everything's filled, then you get to score them. This can actually go on here because it's blue equals blue. These are wild. If I put this here, it's just 1 point because there's nothing adjacent. But if I place it here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Well, that's a better place to put it. This thing would get me 1, 2 points. We'd also look in this direction. If there were some here, it'd be 1, 2, 3 points in addition. So you're trying to score. Scoring is basically the exact same as the original Azul, but now you're actually creating the board by drafting some of these tiles. That's what you're trying to do in the game. Now, if you are short a certain amount of tiles, like maybe I only need 1 more red, over the course of the game, you're going to be getting bonus chips. These have half sides. 2 halves of red I could discard to basically say this is a red, and I could finish this, which would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And of course, just like normal Azul, these all go back into the discard pile. You could also spend 3 of these, of any of the 3, to be any single one. So bonus tiles, which we're going to show you in just a moment, these are, you'll be able to draft these, you'll be drafting these, but you'll also be drafting these. So now there's 3 different things to draft on your turn. Now the drafting of tiles is similar to the original Azul with some differences. There's 5 factories, and you can take all of one color off a factory. Like if I want to take these 3 blue, well, normally these used to go in the middle, but now they go here, and I would get to place these. Now, why is that important? Because now if someone takes, let's say, these 2 reds, there's 2 left over. What do they do with these? You get to stack them, the player who did it, and they get to say it. So if this player knows that the other player wants to take this, they would stack it like this, knowing they can't take these. But if it was this player, the one who did this and wants the brown, they might stack this. Why would they do that? Well, because on your turn, instead of taking one from here, you can take all of the same color. That's the top one that you can see in any of these. So for example, let's say that somebody took this and they did something like this. Well, if someone wanted to take the top of the moons, they could take the 2 browns, but they're not getting those browns because they're covered. And if someone takes the normal tiles here, like 2 blues, all of these go here, right? So let's say someone else goes here and they take these 2 blues. Let's say they stack these. Now someone could say, I'm taking the top blue from all the moons. 1, 2, 3. Now the first person to take that takes the number 1. That lets you go first next turn, but also makes you lose a point. Now let's say this next player goes, oh, I'm going to take these. It now reveals a bonus chip. Now, twice per round, you're going to be able to draft one of these bonus chips and placing them here. And once you have your second one, you know you've already drafted your 2 for the round. You can't draft anymore. So now in addition to drafting from the factories, the sun sides, drafting from the moons, now you can draft those the bonus chips, but you can also draft these dome tiles. Now you can only do this twice per round. Basically, you have 2 tokens. You get rid of it when you take one. You get rid of it when you get your second one. That way you know you've taken 2 for the round. You can take any of these, like this. Now, there's only 3 here. They don't refill to the end of the round. So one player might take this. Later on, another player might take this. Later on, a player might not want this. They might want this. This has Y on the back. They spend a point to take this and look at it. Do they want it? Nope. Do they want to spend another point and take this one? Nope. Yeah, they do. They want to spend another point. They want this one because this one has a special tile on it. We'll go over that in just a moment. And so the third thing you could draft are these these dome tiles, and this is giving you where you're placing things on your board. Now, there are those special tiles. What happens is anytime you have all three except the special tile, you take a special tile, you place it on here, that's just off to the side of the board in the supply, and you get that many points. That's all the different ways you score. You play up to 6 rounds. But you might be losing points by taking that first player marker. You'll lose 2 points. And any stones that you take, or the tiles that you can't place, you put them, stack them here in a tall thing. The first one's -1, the second one's -2, third one's -3, fourth one's -4. After 4, you don't lose anything else. Now, one thing I don't like is this board. This doesn't even need to be here. These could just be on the on the table. And this is not good because as you're reaching for these, you might bump these. This is very slippery material. It moves around. Having a scoreboard that you can mess with right next to something that you're grabbing, horrible idea. You should put the score track around the player board with some something that sort of like a paperclip type thing that slides around. There's also bonuses. 3 bonuses. End of the game, if you finish a row, 3 points. Finish diagonally, 10. You can do that twice. Finish a column, 7. These are double-sided, and there's actually another one. So these give you all sorts of different bonuses that you can play with randomly or such. You get 3 per game. And another thing to think about, whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. All right, let me label my preferences and biases here right up front. Azul, when it first came out, by the time I had actually played it, it had so much hype that when I played it, I was like, okay, it's good. It's like a 7. But I didn't think it deserved all the hype it got. Later on, the second one came out, Azul, the Stained Glass of Sintra, and I loved that one. To this day, Stained Glass of Sintra is still my favorite. I feel like it's the easiest to teach, but it's also the deepest with the littlest amount of rules overhead. The scoring's easier to teach than the original, and I fell in love with it. Then I went back to the original Azul and started playing it more and more, and it did grow on me even more, where now I'd give it I think like an 8.5. Like, I really like it. Then 2 other ones came out, the Summer Pavilion and then Queen's Garden. Now, between all of those, Sintra is my favorite. Up until this point, the original was my second, and then I liked Queen's Garden, and Summer Pavilion was my least favorite. I know many strategy gamers like that one the most. I did not like it as much because I felt like once you pick a strategy early in the game, you have to stick with that strategy the entire game. The game is no longer tactical, it's just strategic, and you pretty much know what you're going to do for the rest of the game. So I didn't like that one as much, but many people like it. I still like it. I'll still play it if you ask me, but I like the other ones better. So coming with that bias and how this all shakes up, how did I like Duel? Well, let's talk about the things I did like about it. The different tiles to draft is an interesting thing here, because normally you're just drafting tiles in all these Azuls. But here, not only are you drafting tiles to place on your board, you're also drafting these domes that you're placing on your board, which means you're trying to figure out which color goes where. You're also doing the bonus chips. And that's interesting because now you're not only drafting one type of thing, you're drafting 3 different types of things, which already expands the decision space hugely. But what really happens here is it changes the timing of the drafting. One of the reasons why I loved Stained Glass of Sintra is because there was a part where you could almost like take a break and reset your guy for a turn, which could mess up the timing so that other players would take turns at getting something they really want, and allows you to kind of mess the timing up so that you don't end up taking a bunch of tiles that you can't place for negative points. I loved that in Stained Glass of Sintra. Here it changes the timing even more because now when you're drafting, you might take one thing to let the opponent change the board state, like taking the top tiles on the moon, or you might change it because you want them to take some of these other tiles because you want something else to go on top of the moon, so then you can do that. There's lots of different strategies with the timing of this, and I love that push and pull of like delaying or trying to get your opponent to do something you want to do so that you can do something that's going to be even better than what you can do now. It's amazing. It really takes the decision pace further than any of the Azul games, in my opinion, now that you're looking at 3 different sets of sort of currency or things that you're going after. I love that when you take the tiles, you stack them, and the tiles that you don't take are stacked. And I love that you get to decide this, because some of the times you're going to help yourself out and go, you know what? There's a couple of light blues out there. They're not collecting light blues. I want light blues. I'm going to put that one on top because they're probably not going to take 3 of them. They don't have any room for them. They're not really collecting them. They don't have a dome tile for it. And then next time, great, I'll get the light blue. Other times you'd be like, oof, They really want yellow. I'm putting yellow on the bottom because if I don't, they're going to take 3 of those. Now they can only get 2. They may or may not do it. So you can, over the course of the game, be messing with your opponents or helping yourself out just by putting things in certain orders. You might even go, you know what, I'm going to put this brown one here because I'm going to take that one next. Then it's going to release the blue one next to it. I want blue, so maybe the next 2 turns I'll do that. I mean, it's just like the decision space explodes exponentially with this, and I love it. It reminded me of a game called Mandala Stones, where you're like, there's stacked stones and you're taking them in a certain order and you're trying to stack them in certain orders and putting them in certain orders if there's a lot of strategy. It reminds me of that. I like the flexibility of building your board without restrictions. Now the first Azul, you could flip the board over and you could put the colors how you want, but you always had to have like, each color had to be in each column once and no more than once. So there were some restrictions. Here, it gives you that flexibility, but even more, because now with those dome tiles, you could have 3 reds in the same row, 3 reds in the same column. It doesn't matter. You are carte blanche to do anything you want there. That flexibility is really freeing. I like the flexibility of the bonus chips. You have 2 halves. If you have any 2 halves of any kite, you can use that for one of the stones or the tokens that you can't get. Or you could spend any 3. The flexibility of spending any 3 of those to be anything could be huge towards the end of the game. I like the wild and special dome plates. Wilds are going to let you put anything there. The special plates, you get all 3. Again, yet another thing to think about, because as you're drafting those plates, you can spend points to get the ones you can't see, but you can tell if it has a special plate or a wild on there. Lots to like here. Lots to not like here too, so let me talk about that. There's things, first of all, I want to say I love the game. It's amazing. I'll talk about my final thoughts here in just a moment. But there are things that I felt like could have made this game better, some missteps. Number 1, generally speaking, a lot of these Azul games, there typically is always 2 tiles that don't have anything on them. No nice, beautiful printing. I think it's the red and the blue in the original. Here it's the red and the blue. Nothing on them. All the other ones have patterns, look nice and beautiful. The plain ones just look plain. Why not put patterns on everything? This is a personal nitpick that I've had because all of the Azuls have some, I think, that don't have any patterns on them, except stained glass Sintra, but those are like plastic. I didn't like that. Please add patterns to all the tiles. Next, the player boards. They are super thin. They're very thin to the point where you have to like fold them backwards and crease them really hard to get them to sit flat before you start the game. They're very thin. Granted, I get the price point they're trying to stick in. It would have been better to have thicker boards, ones that actually fold like a normal playing board. I don't like the thin boards. They're very thin. I hate the scoring board. The scoring boards, again, it's as thin as the other things, but then it just has the 3 places for the dome tiles. You don't really need that. Just place 3 dome tiles next to the factory display. And the scoring board is almost useless because it's so easily bumped. And when you're moving things, they slide around. That paper is very shiny and slippery. You're almost always going to mess your score up. And this is a game, I mean, you mess your score up, the game's over. They move around too much. I would either have liked to see them use sort of that travel version of Azul, where like it sticks in the thing. Again, price point probably couldn't have done it. Those overlays that are in some of the Azuls, again, price point couldn't have done it. But why not take that board out of there? It's not needed. And maybe put little scores around the edge of the player board and then put one of those little like slidey things that like sort of clips to the side of the board. And then you just slide it around and it stays there. That would have been a much better solution. It probably wouldn't have cost any more. Probably would have costed less because now you have less boards. I do not like the scoreboard. I hate the scoreboard in this because it bumps and it moves way too easily for the score. What else did I not like about it? Some of the bonus chips have a blank side, but the blank side looks like the special chip. It's the exact same color. Nowhere in the rules does it talk about this. Apparently it's nothing. It's just like, haha, only half of this has anything on it. That should have been explained in the rules. My last thing is more expectations on me. Lots of duel games have been coming out lately, and the reason why they're so popular, the reason why they're so good, is because a lot of these duel games have a recipe. And Bruno Cathala has started this whole thing where he started this trend in duel games, my favorite designer, by the way. And it's like duel games tend to have a certain recipe of like, there's going to be tug of wars, there's going to be immediate victory conditions to add pressure. And the best ones do that. I was hoping and expecting that this was going to do that. Where, ooh, we're tugging on some wars. It's a battle. Oh, I can't let them get another blue. If they get 5 blues in a row, they win. You know, stuff like that. Immediate victory conditions. They didn't do that. So I was a little disappointed in that. With that being said, the game is fantastic. Would I like to see yet another version of this with some of those typical 2-player duel tension things that really ratchet things up? Yes, I would love it. And I think there's room for that. There could be another one of these. But with that being said, it might seem like I'm picking on this game, but it's only because I want the game to be better. I love this game. In fact, I love most of these rules with 2 players. And it's a fantastic game, all of them with 2 players. I won't play any of them before this with 2 players. This game has the most depth possibly. Queen's Garden, I think, has the most depth, but it's added with a lot of fiddliness of new rules, a lot of ways where you can actually place things thinking you're following the rules, but then later on going, oh, I couldn't have put that one there because that one joined this other thing over here, and I didn't see that at the time. How do I back this up? It has some fiddliness, but it also has the most depth. This, I'd say, has as much depth as Queen Garden, or arguably, maybe even more. And with that being said, it has a simple rule set that's not that much harder to grasp than the original Azul. So for me, 2 players, this is the best version. I don't think I'd play any other version first without playing this one 2-player because it's the best. Now this version versus the other ones, this is one of the best. It is. It's just really good. If you like Azul and you play 2 players, and even if you love the other Azul's 2 players, this is the best one with 2 players. I just gotta say it. It's amazing. The decision space, the depth. I always talk about my depth to complexity ratio. How deep can game be without a lot of complexity? This has that. This is the best Azul for 2 players. I'm glad it came out, but I'd still love to see one with some tug of wars and immediate victory conditions really stopping the other player from going in a certain direction. Please do that. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships to board games, helping you buy the next one you love. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, and they just launched their 4.5 Kickstarter, which will introduce the new Galactic, Mycroft, and Watson Game Toppers with interchangeable rail inlays, as well as new game mats, miniature gaming terrain packs, leg kit options, dining covers, accessories, and amazing package deals. Search for Game Toppers on Kickstarter or go to GameToppersLLC.com.